Those are the variables in nature. It is not that hydro is not much Bangladesh. Geothermal, not yet. If you consider the present technologies of renewable energy, then the solar is the most potential, and then the wind. Now for solar, that is again the solar PV, not the concentrated solar or something like that, because Bangladesh do not have that much of solar resources. So Bangladesh need to move very carefully to maximize the solar PV development in Bangladesh. Because Bangladesh is a tiny landmass with huge population. Our food security is the most important part of to take care of. So we have to look into the other technologies of the solar, like floating solar, or the land-based solar only, or agri-solar, solar rooftop. So these sort of things government is looking for. Of course, government has a roadmap. Government has a roadmap for renewable energy. Government is going to revise the renewable energy policy. Hopefully, by the end of next month, will be approved. Where all form of technologies of renewable energy, biogas, biomass, wind, solar, will be taken care of through that policy. But there are few challenges for promotion of solar as well as the wind and other form of renewable energy in Bangladesh. One is the technology is not readily available in the country, and the trained manpower is not also sufficient for going to the floating solar and other things. Rooftop solar, it is okay. Land-based solar, not much expertise. Only few people are there who can design and implement the project. But for the, if I come to the industry, then the major problem is that you know that renewable energy technology needs the upfront cost is very high. So if I consider from the policy side, we need the enabling policy from the government, which can facilitate the investors come and participate into the journey. And if we said that industry should come forward, but you know that if you consider the apparel industries or fashion industries, they do not have that much time and expertise to concentrate on promotion of renewable energy, because they are in for their own businesses. So we need a right form of blending of the people who will come up with investment as with proper technologies and have a shake hand with the industry so that they can utilize them. If I narrow down my discussion into the industry context, especially the fashion industry context, then government is in discussion with the industries to prepare, we will call it the corporate PPA, by which that industries can get access to the renewable energy benefit in their production. There are few challenges. Just yesterday I tried to discuss with relevant government people as well as the technology providers, which I found that this corporate PPA can facilitate the industries say 2 to 3 years down median. Number one. Number two, there is another opportunity at this moment which they identified by the government, that sleep PPA, mean that Bangladesh has now 890 megawatt of installed capacity of renewable energy. Whether
that is
this benefit
industrial and household both.
This is the commercial as well as the rooftop and others. Whether industry can get access to benefit of that renewable energy production, maybe through certification or something like that. In this particular case, the renewable energy certificate will not be necessary. Only the certificate or authentication from the off-taker can be utilized. And third option is the renewable energy certification, but that also needs some time. So readily available facilities is SLIP PPA, then to the maybe either renewable energy certification or corporate PPA.
In those cases, you have already mentioned, right, you have the high amount of cost, right, at the start. How is the government policy looking like?
You see that government always try to mobilize the concessional financing for renewable energy project. Not only for the government sector, but also for the private sector. This is one. Number two, when I consider the, say, corporate PPA or certification. Certification, the SLIP PPA will be the less cost than the corporate PPA, as I understand, because I was discussing that the industry understanding is that corporate PPA will be the less cost option. That I tried to discover from the main project developer or project owners as well as from the government. But it is not like that as yet. But further discussion might create some clarity, bring some clarity on there. So I will request the industries to continue their discussion with the government so that some kind of solution is really needed. At the same time, I will request the buyers also that if it is, the cost will be involved there, no doubt about it. So they should also share some of the cost to facilitate the manufacturer to keep their business up for the
Continue that point, sir, because I wanted to go to others, but I just wanted to come to this point again, continue. Is it only money? Because if it is only money, there would have been solution by now. It is not just the money, because when I am talking to a brand, it says, okay, tell me how can I account it? Tell me how I will get my things back. Is it going to be this percentage of CO2 reduction on my book? Then they will put an account on the cost. That's not a problem. But probably there is something else in our infrastructure, in our country, where in and out needs to be accounted. Probably. In that sense, are we looking outside and get the data, or probably we need to generate from our own and create requirements for the mills? Because if it's money, someone will buy somehow, and some torchbearers would have been already available. That's my view, personal view.
You are 100% correct, because it is not only the money, it also needs to develop the mechanism by which it should be recognized by the authorities, either UNFCCC or the European Union, whoever it may be, that it must be authenticated by the appropriate authority. That yes, that's why I said that carbon corporate PPA as well as the renewable energy certification needs time. But SLIP PPA needs less time because plant is already there. Just develop a mechanism through which you can facilitate this.
Thank you, sir. So my doubt is clarified. So just now coming back to the banker. So we all know World Bank and what is their contribution to the decarbonization segment globally. My first question, there are two questions. The first question is about how can we teach or bring the learnings from external learnings to Bangladesh to accelerate, because here probably we can add more value and things can happen, then more people will adopt. So how can we increase that accelerating learning from outside? And the second is, okay, second I will come of the more points on those two people who said that investment, the upfront investment, how can we deal with the upfront investment to manage the situation, because Vidura said that cannot be the only way of decarbonization. So how are we dealing with that kind of situations?
Let's start with like what sort of decarbonization Bangladesh needs, right? Then I will come back to your answer, your question and the answer to that. When we go to the textile factories, I used to work for this industry for some time. I'm now in the bank, and you call me a banker. At some point of my life, if someone called me a banker, I'd really get insulted. But now that's what I am. Yeah. So I'm a banker now. So what we're talking about is the decarbonization of textile industry. So we have been going to the textile factories for a long time, right? And Shiva, you have been there as well, and we have seen like there are many ways to decarbonize this industry. Probably we can talk about two major pipelines here. One pipeline is the energy efficiency and energy saving. The second pipeline is energy generation, so what energy we are using. A lot of industrialists is present here today, so probably I start from the energy efficiency and savings. What do you have in Bangladesh? If you go to a factory, what sort of motors we are using? Most of these motors are either unrated or IE1. In some cases, probably IE2. But we already have i3 motors, i4 motors, even i5 motors. You can have a lot of energy efficiency there. And I think the payback period is something around 2 to 3 years. It's not a lot of money we're talking about, but it is not done. Most of the factories in Bangladesh are run by captive power generation, right? We do not use the national grid. So that's another problem, because if the sleeved PPA or the corporate power purchase agreement, anything has to happen, the grid needs to be there. So that's another discussion, I'll go later. But currently you are using captive power generation and using what? Natural gas, which has the efficiency of 25% to 40% maybe. If you're a new generator, 45% maybe. What happens to the rest of 55% energy? This is basically wasted as heat energy. If you talk to any other part of the world, even India, in other part where there is a gas generator, they probably are using exhaust gas boilers. They probably are using the chillers and stuff like that, and using this waste energy, and using it. So making the maximum use of the natural gas that you are using. But in Bangladesh, I think maximum I probably have 30% to 40% cases where we have these EGVs or exhaust gas chillers installed. Otherwise we don't. So just imagine the government right now is struggling a lot to pay for the fuel that they are importing. A lot of that is liquefied natural gas, and we are basically wasting 60% of it. So the country is losing foreign currency, the factories are losing money. One of my colleagues in H&M one day once told me that every time we go into a factory, we feel like dollars are blowing out of places. And that's what exactly happening in Bangladesh. So I think, first and foremost, we need to look at the pricing infrastructure of the electricity and gas and understand why in Bangladesh we do not care as much about energy efficiency, as much about energy saving like we do in other parts of the world. What's the problem there? So we need to look at that. Then come to the next part is the energy generation that we are using in our factories. Of course, most of it is fossil fuel based natural gas coming either from your grid or from the captive generation. And as I just said, most of it, 95% I think, is coming from the captive generation, only 5% is from the grid. First and foremost, for corporate power purchase agreement or anything to happen, the factories need to move from their fossil fuel based generation to grid. And for that to happen, the grid needs to be reliable. You can't be a factory who is exporting to different countries in the world, working for best of the brands, and do not have a reliable electricity in place. And that is where in the first place they all move to the captive generation. In any part of the world, captive generation is backup. In Bangladesh, grid is the backup, right? So we need to change that dynamics as well. And for that to happen, there needs to be a lot of investment in our grids. The grid needs to update itself. And there's a lot of project going on there, and we're very happy. Now, on that generation side, Siddiq Jiwar Bhai already mentioned the corporate power purchase agreement, sleeve agreement, and I'm very happy to see that the government has it in their purview and they're working on it. But we have been talking about this for the last 2-3 years, and the progress is still very slow. I know that one of the big brands which I work for, example, they needed like 4,000 megawatt of electricity right now just to reduce their, right? So where does all this 10, 12,000 renewable energy will be coming from? So we need to bring a lot of investment. And this investment, in my opinion, cannot come only from the government or from the DFI. The private sector needs to jump in there. And what we can do together with the government is probably creating the enabling environment so that the private sector can come. And why private sector so far has been very much challenged to come in Bangladesh in renewable energy generation. One of the biggest thing is the risk premium that we have here. One of the biggest problem is the guarantees mechanism that we have here. So we need to develop a better mechanism so that we can de-risk energy production in Bangladesh, renewable electricity generation in Bangladesh, which can bring the cost down a little. And if the cost of renewable electricity generation continues to go down, which is the trend globally, happens in Bangladesh as well, and as the current trend shows, the natural gas-based electricity generation continues to go up, it is only the right business decision to switch to the renewable electricity generation, right? And as we're talking about the learnings that we can have from different parts of the world, I think there are ample experiences of this from our neighboring country of India, from our southeastern colleagues like Malaysia and Singapore. I just learned that in Malaysia and Singapore, I think the risk premium is something below 2%, close to 1%. In Bangladesh, it's above 3.5%. So just imagine any investor coming to Bangladesh wants to do a renewable electricity project. They need to talk about how they can de-risk their project. But right now, the situation is not like that. So we need to really work on that side of the game so that we can bring the electricity cost down. And at the end of the day, I think the industry here and the government here really needs to understand that we are talking about a very peculiar economy where 84% of the export is coming from one single sector. And if you do not secure it, the whole country goes into a problem, right? And to secure that, we need to have some level of renewable electricity coming into it. And that's just how it is. I think my time is up. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I got the point. And that is what you mentioned, an important point of the importance of the collaboration of it, making the policy decisions to ensure that the atmosphere is created so that free money can come freely. Right now, money is coming with a lot of push, and the investors are not coming directly with a lot of hope. They are coming with probably something because someone is asking you to do it. That's one thing. Right now, someone is making. Okay, some brands are making. You know what it is, but it's not coming directly into the system right now. So we need to now challenge. Follow-up question would be how much time you think that this system, because World Bank needs to create that ecosystem to create that the government is able to function with investors, foreign investors and everyone else to come in. If that is happening, I think we've solved 30 to 40% of the first step issues. So do you think that it is going to be within that 2 years time, we are hoping that it is going to be possible?
I'm not going to comment on the exact timeline that we need because it's a very moving situation, volatile situation, and it's very difficult to say that, okay, within 2 years, 5 years, we'll get it done. All I can say is that from the bank side and the communications that we are having constantly with the government, we see there is a lot of potential. We see there is a lot of cooperation that is going to happen. And we are really, really counting on that. Be it renewable electricity generation, be it developing the transmission and distribution networks, be it removing the bottlenecks from the transmission and distribution network for the renewable electricity to come to the factories or a policy level development. for corporate power purchase agreements and other sort of instrument. We are very happy to work with the government of Bangladesh, and we are very happy to support them. There is a lot of history between the World Bank and the Bangladesh, and we will continue to do that. The energy advisor even this morning has mentioned that there are going to be 40-50 projects that are going to be floated in the next months. We are supporting the government on that as well, and we'll continue to see if our guarantee mechanism and support can help Bangladesh de-risk the project so that the cost of electricity generation comes down, not only for the people who are present in this auditorium today, but for the people of the country. The cost of electricity, cost of green renewable electricity goes down, so that we are going to continue to support the country, of course.
Thank you, sir. Coming back to our industry, because representative, and then you have been there for a long time, so you know all the roadblocks. I'm not asking you about roadblock because you know it, and then you will take one full day for that. But I am going to only ask you one thing. Given a choice, what do you want to ask the government and the brand and the financer who are there, and what are your wishes?
If you want me to reply in one sentence, we need to connect the dots. There are energy in each of the segments, but this is not connected. You see, decarbonization is a mindset. It's not about money or mechanism. It's an absolute mindset, and resilient partners and our proud entrepreneurs has shown it by engaging at least 270 LEED certified factories, and there are another 500 is on the pipeline. That shows the commitment, and I'm sure that if you connect the other dots, that's excellent. I'm sure that I'm proud of all my colleagues in association, Mustafis, and they have done a tremendous job to even establish an RBH, which is kind of like registering the data and disclosing the data to understand, not to misunderstand, to understand what's the landscape, to understand what is the gap, and to have a resilient, active plan. How do we reduce the gap? Of course, if I shall mention it rightly, that decarbonization does not have low-hanging fruits like reduce, reuse, recycling, each of the industry. But I must say that here, our capacity and capability of the regulatory board have to come up. I must congratulate our government for a project like Shredder and others, but I must say that you have to engage much more energy inspector, and eventually when you have a prescription done, you have to also initiate the support. How do we convert all this wastage immediately? You talk about the mid-level factories, the lower-level factories. Everybody will have it because everybody see that have some advantage about tax and others. But of course, in terms of policy, there have to be a lot of things done in terms of policy making. Talk about infrastructures. So we talk about having this corporate power purchase agreement. I remember the previous government, and we was discussing, and we was almost hopeless on the meeting that there was no conclusion. I must thanks to a lot of brands that they are being also partnering that, and we tried, but I must say that the mindset of the new government will open the door, and I was really happy to hear from Mr. Lutfi Siddiqui's statement, and I must say that this is the time, like we in 2014, we realized after Rana Plaza how vulnerable for the occupational health and safety, fire safety, and building safety. We invested heavily, and the business actually rewarded back. From when you see the business in 2014, it was 16.2 billion. When you see the business today is 42 billion. So the business has paid back when we invested. So I'm sure in terms of if we take the decarbonization as a fancy word, we can take, but it's a commitment, it's a mindset, and it's an urgency. I must say that Dr. Vidura's statement was kind of very much eye-opening, and I must congratulate for such a wonderful report.
and we really need to meaningfully work on it, like what we have done before in 2014. I think the Bangladesh Chapter 2 should be focusing on this, or else we will face those music.
Got it, sir. Coming back to the worker.
Just to connect,
Yeah.
stay one more side. Of course, the industry partners are ready to listen, ready to invest, but with a guided policy. And I'm sure the new government will at least now do it. And at the same time, so I have my colleagues and brand partners here, they also understand the pre-costing of it. I'm sure they will also work with us. Many of them are already working with us, but that's only 42% of it, if I see that branded. The other landscape is still vulnerable equally, but have to be projected, have to be worked on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. To circle back, so you know that the brand has been working on their targets, and you have been working with almost all the supply chain partners and the mills on decarbonization. How are you? I'm not asking about roadblock, but how are you actually managing the balance that you are reducing, at the same time you are not investing too much and making losses? So how are you balancing that and making a business case for the industry?
Thank you very much. I believe that at Carpet we have a sustainability strategy. Can you hear me now? Good. Okay. So at Target, we have a sustainability strategy which is called Target Forward. At the very heart of the strategy is that how we can work with our partners. So at the heart of the strategy is that how we can work with our partners to co-create an equitable and regenerative future. And our partners in supply chains are factories, mills, and the other suppliers we work with. And along with that, we also work with our guests and communities where we operate. I think how we can work with everybody together is that over the last 2 years, this understanding has progressed tremendously. And this understanding has provided the ground to reduce the emissions. We have worked with our partners in Bangladesh and across the globe, and brought in the expertise, brought in the technical partners like climateimpact Institute, Manufacturing Climate Action Forum, and others as well, come and educate these partners. So at the heart of our every business strategy is sustainability, and how we can reduce emissions, because as Target we have a commitment by zeroing the emissions by 2040. So everything we do, we work back and specifically see that how sustainability can come in, how we can reduce these emissions from the supply chain, which are scope 3 for us. So we work with our partners, our supply chain partners, we work with expert networks, we sponsor them, fund them, and that's how we take it forward.
So education, collaboration, and fund. Okay. Now, going back to you, sir, about the upfront investment. How can we find a solution? Now, I'm not talking about a solution for the factories to ensure that the investment, because now with these the solutions which are available with a lot of other programs, factories know what to